I don't think I've talked about my brain and my mental state since last September. But saying that, since then I've only made like 6 videos. But as you may know, a lot can change in that time, and so we're going to talk about it anyway. So I realised I never actually said in the last video what I'm suffering from. I am suffering with bipolar disorder, which you may also know as manic depression, but that term is not used anymore. So basically I have high episodes, which is mania, and then I have depression, and then I also sometimes have psychotic symptoms thrown into the mix, which you know are always fun. I feel like a lot of people know what comes with depressive episodes, so I'll talk a little bit about what comes with manic episodes. Mania is basically really, really annoying for everyone involved. Manic episodes for me can vary. I can be very excitable and happy, or I can be very angry and irritable. Something I found very noticeable is I will talk very quickly and a lot. And I can make conversation very hard to follow because I'll be jumping around quite a lot. Like, I'll be talking about one thing and then I'll move into something completely unrelated in the same sentence, which can understandably make me very frustrating to, well, try to talk to. I almost always come out of a manic episode either feeling ashamed of my behaviour or not really remembering what I've done, which is why I actually find mania worse than depression. The best thing I can compare it to is waking up after a night out and not really remembering what happened. But yeah, that's mania in a nutshell. There's a lot more to it than that, but it's complicated. I'd say getting the diagnosis last year for me was a big turning point, because as soon as I realised it wasn't just depression, everything made so much more sense. I'll use relationships as an example. Most relationships I've ever been in, no, every relationship I've ever been in has ended because my mood spends so much time switching between wanting to be with the person and not wanting to be with the person. It either ends up with me ending it, realising it's better off for both of us, or the not so good thing where I distance myself from them until they eventually end it with me. That usually happens with my depression tricking me into thinking it's a good idea, and it's not a good idea. It's never a good idea to do that. It's never a good idea to just distance yourself until they dump you. Inside my brain there is a battle between mania, depression and rational thought, which is exhausting. The most frustrating thing for me is that my rational thought is always present. I call it the real me, as it were, if that makes any sense. And it's frustrating because when I'm depressed or manic, the rational thought doesn't come across, but it is there, but nothing I can do can seem to make it come out in my behaviour. It's like I'm watching someone else's life through a viewfinder and I have no control over it. It's almost like my thought process is delayed by a couple of seconds, but in terms of where I am now, I'm coping. Yeah, that's the only way I can put it. I understand what's going on in my brain much more now, and as a result I have a little bit more control over it. Marginally, I'll admit, but my mental illness is nowhere near what it used to be. I found that being emotionally genuine with the people I'm close with has probably made the biggest difference, because instead of my behaviour just being completely erratic with no explanation, it means they can be more understanding, and it's easier to take steps forward dealing with issues that may have arisen from a behaviour being so unpredictable. It's not an excuse for my behaviour, I will never use it as an excuse for my behaviour, but it's a lot easier when there's a reasonable explanation. But yeah, emotional genuity, who knew? And when I say there's a battle in my brain, over the last few months it's been a lot more of a conversation. I feel like all 3 parts are slowly coming to an understanding with each other. My lows have been a lot less low and my highs are nowhere near as high as they used to be. It's still frustrating. It's like living with 2 people that you hate. At the moment I'm just trying to find a routine. I work 5 days a week, and on the other 2 days I'm almost always doing something anyway, and I work damn hard. My shifts are usually 8 to 9 hours long and they can be at any time of the day. The only rule is my shifts have to be 11 hours apart, but I can work from 10 PM until 6 AM and then have to go back to work 5 PM the same day and then work on until midnight. So as you can imagine, my sleep schedule is fucked and my meal times are fucked. But it's fine, my shifts are slowly starting to settle into a pattern which I'm getting used to, albeit slowly. My mood is very situation dependent, and currently I'm living between 2 houses at the moment, one being my parents and one being my boyfriend's. So if I feel like I need to remove myself from the situation, I have ample means of doing so. But yeah, that's bipolar. Anxiety wise, not so good. I've been going through a little bit of a hard time recently with my family. Nothing I've done, like we're not arguing with each other. We've had an incident, and as a result I've noticed I've been a lot more anxious for no reason. Towards the beginning of this year I was getting a lot more confident, I was going out more, I was having a lot more fun, to be honest. Recently I've not been feeling up to leaving the house really, and if I do leave the house it's just to go to my boyfriend's, where I also won't leave. I've also been missing a lot of work, but they've been quite understanding about it. Again, going back to emotional ingenuity, I've talked to my boyfriend about it and he wants to try and help me to get back to where I was, because he's noticed that it is recently I've kind of taken a few steps back, as it were. But I've noticed I've been getting stressed about tiny little things like making a phone call or having to send a text or having to go somewhere. Like earlier this week my car broke and I had to get it to the garage, but I couldn't make the phone call. Eventually my boyfriend took it upon himself to call his friend the mechanic, so all I had to do was drop off the car, leave the keys and then come back when it's done, so I never actually had to talk to anyone. But you sort of see the ridiculousness of it. Like, it makes no sense why I should be scared of making a phone call to get someone to fix my car when it's their job. But yeah, been better, but I've been worse. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Let it go.